everyone, and welcome to Building Respect as we recognize National Work Zone Safety Awareness Week this week, April 11th to 15th. I'm Mary McGuire, Director of Public and Government Affairs at AAA Northeast, and I'm joined by a great group of committed stakeholders at today's press event. Thank you all so much for being here. Temperatures are expected to soar past 70 degrees today, which is wonderful news for all of us, but it also means construction and road work are already well underway. And April also marks Distracted Driving Awareness Month. From 2018 to 2021, there were more than 180 work zone related crashes in Massachusetts that resulted in a serious injury or fatality. So please remember to scan the road, eliminate driving distractions, and when you see emergency responders or red, yellow, and blue lights at the roadside, slow down and move over. It's the law. Imagine how you would feel if your own office were just a few feet from drivers speeding by at 65 miles an hour. You wouldn't feel comfortable. Journalists who are with us this morning, welcome. Please type any questions into the chat and we'll be happy to field those questions at the close of this press event. So let's get started by hearing from the man who knows the roads and work zones of the Commonwealth better than just about anyone, State Highway Administrator Jonathan Gulliver, who has been at the helm of local highways and roadways since 2017 and with MassDOT since 2009. Good morning, Administrator, and thanks for being here.
Good morning, Mary, and thank you for hosting this important event to bring awareness to such a major issue for our industry. Work zone safety is something that we talk about frequently, but it really does impact people across the state and across the country. It's been a growing problem. Usually when you hear me talking, it's going to be about things like seatbelt messages, snowstorms, or being, again, just cautious driving. But oftentimes when you hear me talking about projects, and this is something that we do a lot of and we're doing more of, it's going to be talking about how the men and women who are working the roads are doing so to improve road safety for all roadway users. But today we're really talking about the safety of those men and women who work to keep our roadways safe. And as you just said, Mary, in 2018 to 2021 in Massachusetts alone, 181 work zone crashes that resulted in serious injuries or fatalities. And this is a growing problem. I mentioned nationally in 2020 alone, 117 workers died in work zones. That's an eye-popping 21% increase in work zone fatalities just in the last year. So we have a system at MassDOT that I want to just kind of share some insight into. And it's one of the more difficult parts of the job is that we receive on a regular basis alerts telling us about roadway incidents and serious crashes and such. And I can tell you again, one of the hardest parts of my job is getting a text or a call in the middle of the night about an incident that involves one of our staff. So just a real quick sample of some work zone intrusions that I'd like to read for you so you get an understanding of the kind of things that we deal with. So this is one that happened on 93, 12:10 a.m. A backup truck with injury to employee treated at the hospital. This is where somebody drove into a work zone and struck one of our trucks that was working there. Tobin Bridge, 1:30 a.m. Truck with all flashers illuminated was rear-ended. Other vehicle was speeding and never applied brakes, pushed truck forward on impact, resulting in injury to 2 employees. Again, both hospitalized. Pickup truck with flashers illuminated for emergency drainage work. The employee was standing in bed of truck, thrown to the ground after being rear-ended, broken sternum. And then just last week in Bridgewater, Thomas Berkowitz in a bump truck. So thankfully he was in one of the trucks providing protection to the rest of the work zone. He was rear-ended on Route 24, struck by a driver who was going full speed, resulted in injury to both the driver and to our employee, to Thomas, who both had to be transferred to the hospital. And then one of the worst ones in my recollection, my career, this was Greg Villadinsky, who was a field inspector for us, who was on a bridge job in Framingham in 2010, when he was struck in a work zone and killed, unfortunately. So this is a problem that we're quite familiar with in Massachusetts, at MassDOT in particular, but it's just a sampling of incidents that we deal with, and this is something that's repeated in cities and towns across the Commonwealth every day. There are also many more work zone incidents that are close calls that thankfully don't result in serious injuries or death, but I can tell you from firsthand experience, they are very scary when they happen. I've been on a work zone when an intrusion has happened, and they are always preventable. So how do you prevent these? First off, slow down. Speed kills. It's a contributing factor in over 30% 37% of the fatal crashes that we have, and that's again just up 5% in this past year alone. We've seen troubling metrics across the board for highway safety in these last couple of years. So 5% last year alone. Pay attention and minimize distractions. This is one of the #1 things that you can do. On my way in today, I can't tell you how many people I saw still using a cell phone, both looking at it in their lap, having it up to their ear. Put them down, ignore them, use Bluetooth if you need to make a phone call, but do not have them in your hands. And finally, we mentioned it before, move over. If you see an emergency vehicle of any kind, slow down, give them space to work. So you have to remember that these men and women are some of the most vulnerable people on the roadways. They're often working unprotected, addressing emergency work. And like everybody else, they have friends and families that they want to return home to at the end of the day. But their safety relies on the choices that drivers make. So it's a very important thing for all of us in this industry. And I hope that today's event really brings into focus the importance of maintaining vigilance on the roadway and really watching, especially as you approach these work zones, and slow down your speed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Administrator. And you know what, those examples that you gave us really bring home how real the hazards are out there. I actually drove by 2 work zones yesterday and stopped to take some pictures for this event. And I was talking to the workers there and I was saying, hey, we're working to protect you out here. And they were really grateful. So they know how dangerous the work they do is. So thank you once again for some great suggestions too, for being vigilant. Lieutenant Colonel James Kincannon is commander of the Division of Field Services at the Massachusetts State Police. He joined the State Police in 1993, and in recent months, several troopers have been struck while assisting at the roadside. He joins us now to highlight the importance of work zone safety and the slow down, move over law. Welcome, Lieutenant Colonel.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate you having me here. Thank you to AAA and you specifically, Mary, for being a huge proponent of traffic safety. Core mission of the Massachusetts State Police since the early days of the agency has been keeping our roads safe for everybody, protecting everyone who uses the roads, not just the police officers and the motorists, but certainly the construction workers as well, the tow truck drivers, the firefighters, anybody who finds himself out there. I feel that work zone safety should be everybody's concern. In fact, that's why we have motor vehicle violation fines are doubled in the work zones. Work zone safety goes hand in hand with attentive, non-distracted driving and adherence to the move over law. The added factor of a narrow roadway and a stationary work setup puts troopers, construction workers, and tow truck drivers at an added risk. I think Mr. Gulliver had pointed out that in 2021, troopers responded to 681 work zone crashes across the state of Massachusetts, the highest number since the 851 we responded to in 2017. So far this year, we've responded to 89 such crashes as of yesterday. We urge the public to be mindful of the increased exposure to dangers at work zones and to respond accordingly. Failure to move over is bad. Failure to move over in combination with speed, distracted driving, or impaired driving can be deadly. With that, Mary, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Devlin, the wife of Tommy Devlin.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Colonel. And I have to say that no one feels the true impact of a police officer being struck at the roadside more acutely and painfully than Nancy Devlin, widow of Trooper Thomas Devlin, and her family. Trooper Devlin was struck while conducting a traffic stop in Billerica in 2018, and following 6 grueling surgeries, passed away in 2020 due to his devastating injuries. The driver who hit Trooper Devlin was sentenced to 2 years in prison last week. And in the meantime, Nancy Devlin is raising 4 children, 2 sons, 2 daughters, as a single parent. We are really honored to be joined this morning by Mrs. Nancy Devlin, and we are so sorry for your loss, Mrs. Devlin.
Thank you so much, Mary. I appreciate that, and I'm grateful that you asked me to be here today to speak. And I also want to thank Lieutenant Colonel Kincannon and Colonel Mason for also asking me to participate in this, just to try to take the opportunities to spread the awareness so that no family ever has to go through what we've been living with since July 26th of 2018.
So can you tell us a little bit about what the impact on your family has been for you?
It's been horrific. In one moment, a perfect life changed. He was healthy and strong and sick one time in the almost 29 years that we were together. He loved his job, absolutely loved his job, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, but we never doubted that we came first. When he was home, he was just the most amazing guy I've ever known, strong faith in God. So he was a phenomenal husband, incredible dad. He was a great mentor to young troopers. And he just set an example by living every day out there on the Commonwealth, doing the right thing, and also brought a lot of those lessons that he took to people on the road, and he brought them home to our children so that they would learn lifelong lessons. So he was just very active, very involved in all of our lives. So when he was struck, our third had just graduated high school and he was going to start college. We had a phenomenal party 5 days before, and I asked him if we could talk about retirement. He said, give me 5 more years and I will take a look at it. I want to get the younger two. We have 2 older and 2 younger kids, because he was also struck on a stop that he made. I'm sorry, he was not struck. He was in an altercation where somebody tried to take his gun right after we had our second child. So he was injured. So he wanted to do 5 more years so that he could get the younger 2 through college, and our youngest wants to get her master's degree. So he said, we will reevaluate in 5 years, and he was struck 5 days later. So life as we knew it changed instantly. He was severely injured. How he survived that day is just, it's a miracle from God, because the driver hit him at 54.7 miles an hour and never touched his brakes. He didn't slow down. He didn't move over. He wasn't paying attention. So he hit Tommy so hard, there was an imprint of his body in the door of the vehicle that he had stopped. So life has changed in every possible way. Our oldest has a very rare disorder. It's a neurological disorder that's insidious, no cure. And so he's a full-time job anyway, but at least I had Tommy to help me through that. Now it's just us, and we're just trying to find our way. And I'm so angry from pent up energy over 4 years, wanting to fight for him. I have fought for him for 4 years. Now that the trial is over, I just want to take the opportunity to continue to fight for him, because I also see people on their phones all the time or not paying attention, the cars weaving. And you want to say you've done it all these times because you have the confidence that nothing has happened. You haven't been stopped or you haven't hit anything until the day it does. And then you change your life and that person's life in an instant. The person that hit my husband is in jail now, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. He gets to get out one day and be back with his family. I have a life sentence, as do our children. There are 4 children there. They are the most amazing kids in the world, because we were intentional. And he would have a situation at work, somebody he dealt with, and he'd come home and talk to the kids about it and say, you're not going to be like that, and here's why. So he invested in them every moment that he was in our home. And he lived intentionally in our marriage and in our family. He lived intentionally, and the fruits of that show still to this day and will show forever. And I will just take every opportunity that I'm given. If I can prevent one person from being out there and not slowing down, not paying attention, and not moving over. It's just, his lights were so obvious. You could see his lights on the highway, on a straightaway, on a beautiful summer afternoon. And in an instant, it was gone. He never recovered. He never recovered fully.
Mrs. Devlin, I have to thank you so much for sharing your story. You know, the numbers that we've heard this morning from our speakers are very compelling, but nothing is as compelling and as moving as hearing your story, the story of the impact on your family, because in the end, that's really what traffic safety is all about, is keeping people safe. And we just so appreciate the work of advocates like you, who really bring home what it means to lose someone at the roadside. So thank you. And again, our condolences. And by the way, a shout out to your son, Paul Devlin, for those wonderful photos. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Mary.
Registrar Colleen Ogilvie is deeply committed to traffic safety as well in her role at the Registry of Motor Vehicles. The registrar has been in her post since August of last year and has spent more than 30 years at the RMV. We are happy to have you join us this morning, Registrar Ogilvie.
Thank you, Mary. Good morning, everyone. And first, I extend my deepest condolences to Mrs. Devlin and your family. Certainly, you have expressed what a wonderful husband and father, and certainly resident of Massachusetts you had in your husband. So we're sorry for your loss, but thankful for your strength and courage to continue to advocate for safe driving on roadways in Massachusetts. We are all here today to talk about how we can prevent tragedies like what happened to the Devlin family and call attention to the importance of roadway safety on every road in Massachusetts. The RMV is committed to developing and implementing improved driver education, communications, and informational tools to support the development of good driving habits. Work zone safety will improve when each of us improves our safe operation of vehicles every time we get behind the wheel. In Massachusetts, the top 2 civil motor vehicle infraction types, otherwise known as citations or tickets, are for speeding and failure to yield or stop. In March of 2022, there were over 21,000 tickets issued for speeding and over 6,000 tickets issued for failure to stop and yield. The call to action is now. Slow down and be prepared to stop and yield. By slowing down, you will increase awareness of work zones. You'll be able to better see what's ahead of you, and you'll have improved ability to react safely to a work zone and observe the law. It is important for more experienced drivers to continuously set the right example for new drivers, whether they are teens or adults. Slow down, stop at stop signs, yield at yield signs, and continue to follow the directions of the signs in a work zone. By incorporating better driving practices, you are also mentoring future drivers in your car, our sons, our daughters, our grandchildren, our nieces, nephews, and other family friends. This is very important since there has been an increase in teen motor vehicle fatalities. Motor vehicle crashes are the leading cause of teen injuries and fatalities, but many of these crashes are avoidable. I cannot stress enough the importance of how important it is for teens to learn safe driving habits from when they get into the car with you, starting as a young child. Parents and guardians play a critical role in teaching teens how to become responsible drivers. The time you spend teaching your teen or another new driver, adult, on how to drive safely will impact the lives and those of lives around them. Your teen has been watching you drive and has been observing how you handle situations on the road. Show them how to drive carefully in a work zone. Move over to another lane when you're approaching safety or emergency personnel in the road. And as a parent or guardian, you're both a teacher and a role model. And in this role, as others mentioned, put down your phone. Distracted driving is another potential threat to the work zone safety and the very important law, move over law. The RMV and MassDOT are promoting ways to promote and stop distracted driving. And April is National Distracted Driving Month. Now is the time for you to change your behavior and make the roads safe for all of our emergency personnel, our important road crews, and all of the other drivers on the road. Please focus on the task at hand when you are behind the wheel, which is driving. Thank you, Mary McGuire and AAA for hosting this important event and your continued focus to keep the roadways in Massachusetts safe.
Thank you so much, Madam Registrar. And by the way, thank you for wearing orange, and thank you for mentioning speeding and modeling good behavior for your young drivers, because those are both very important pieces of the traffic safety equation. So thank you. Corey Rateau has been a traffic safety officer with the Arlington Police Department for 27 years now and has devoted much of that time to motor vehicle, pedestrian, and cycling safety. Officer Rateau is a former AAA traffic safety hero, and he joins us this morning to talk about the work zone safety preparations his department is making.
Good morning. First, I'd like to start by thanking my fellow panelists and again extend my condolences to Ms. Devlin for the tragedy she suffered. In the few minutes I have, I'd like to inform our listeners that now that spring and the good weather is hopefully here to stay for a while, you most definitely see that a lot of places that issued winter moratoriums to prevent road work are lifting them now. So you're going to see a lot more work zones on the roadways and construction zones. Now, when these work zones are set up, they should be done so in accordance with the Federal Highway Administration's Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. In a nutshell, it creates guidelines on how to best set up a work zone in the safest manner with directions on advanced warnings, proper signage, and redirecting traffic. In my department, we created and distributed a booklet with many of these guidelines in it so that our officers can identify and correct any unsafe work zone setups. And I told Mary, ironically, prior to her asking me to participate in this press conference, that I was in the process of trying to get some newer commercially available pocket-sized manuals so that the officers can always have them with them when they're on their road details. Now, basically, we do all these things in the work zones because they're dangerous areas to be in for motorists, construction workers, and officers. And I believe, according to some recent data from workzonesafety.org, national numbers are saying, there were 857 people killed in 774 fatal work-related crashes. I often say that my greatest fear of being seriously injured or killed on this job will not be from a violent act by a criminal, but more than likely from being struck while standing in the road like a human cone. And I say this due to what's probably the work zone's greatest enemy, and we've all mentioned it, distracted drivers. I'm sure it's no coincidence that the Work Zone Safety Week this year is also occurring during Distracted Driver Awareness Month. So I say for the safety of yourself, the work zone workers, the officers either in their cruisers or standing on the roadway, please always wear your seatbelt because it not only keeps you safe in a crash, it also helps you maintain control of your vehicle. Maintain a safe distance between you and other vehicles because rear end crashes are very common in work zones, as you heard Mr. Gulliver mention earlier today. Slow down and move over if possible when you see emergency construction vehicles on the roadway or any kind of flashing lights on the roadway. And as previously discussed in other virtual press conferences, it's the law here in Massachusetts and many other states. Heed all work zone warning signs, whether to slow down, we set them up in advance. I know it may be frustrating for some people, especially if you're on a highway or something like that, to see it set so far ahead in advance. But when you're on those high-speed roadways, you really need to start slowing down before you get there, not when you're almost on top of the workers standing in the roadway. And most importantly, put the phone down and pay attention. And this is not just when you're driving to a work zone, but at all times. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Corey, and please stay safe out there this season. That concludes our speaking program. A big thank you to our speakers and to our colleagues in the media who have joined us here this morning. We do have a press question, and Jonathan, I think this is probably directed to you. And the question is, how has the Commonwealth adjusted task lighting to balance work zone safety and not distract drivers?
So something that we do, we have an in-house safety team here at Mass DOT, and something that our staff does on a regular basis is evaluate all the tools that we use on the roadway and how they're reacting. And over the number of years now, we've adjusted many of our practices to ensure better safety, not only for, again, our staff, but for the users of the roadway coming by too. So lighting is one of those things. You see a lot more now where you have like a hooded light fixture on the roadway so that it's not causing as much of a glare to users coming to roadway users that are approaching work zones. That's something that we try to implement on all of our projects. Again, everything has a little bit of a balance. We need to see what we're doing out there, but again, we don't want to blind people coming at us. So that is one of the things that's changed, and you see a lot more of those hooded fixtures now than you used to.
Okay, thank you very much, Administrator. And a big thank you to all of our speakers and to Mark Schildrop, who did a great job with those slides behind the scenes. So Colleen and I are wearing orange today for a reason, and I hope everyone will wear orange tomorrow for Go Orange Day in Massachusetts. And remember to, as our speakers have said so many times this morning, move over and slow down if it's safe to do so when you see red, yellow, or blue lights at the roadside, remember the sacrifice that Trooper Devlin and his family made and are continuing to make, and don't drive distracted, don't speed. Help protect those who protect us on our roadways. Always wear your seatbelt. And a big thank you to our speakers once again, and to members of the media who've joined us, and have a great and safe day, everyone. Thanks so much.
Thank you,
Thank you, Mary.
Mary.
Thanks for being with us.